A tsunami of supersized American-style pickup trucks are hitting Melbourne roads as sales reach record levels. But some fed-up drivers say the vehicles have no place down under.
The trucks we trusted for decades became the very ones that betrayed their owners. From Ford to Chevy to Dodge, millions of buyers believed the ads and signed the papers. But instead of toughness, they got blown head gaskets, failing cam phasers, endless electrical gremlins, and engines so flawed they're avoided like the plague today.
U.S. trucks and SUVs, the company saying that the V8 engines can fail without warning.
So why did these disasters make it to market? How much money have they cost hardworking drivers? And which ones are still sitting on lots right now? Because once you see the truth, you'll understand truck loyalty can be the most expensive mistake you ever make. Ford F-150. Sometimes the most ordinary, everyday truck on the road can turn into the most frustrating ownership story. And nowhere is that more true than with the Ford F-150 built during the mid-2000s. These are the pickups that seem to be on every job site, in every driveway, and in nearly every advertisement celebrating Ford's long tradition as America's top seller. Shoppers bought them in huge numbers, and for good reason. The F-150 had the right look, strong towing and hauling capability on paper, and it carried the prestige of being the best-selling truck in the country year after year. Yet under the hood of many of these rigs sat an engine that became infamous in mechanical circles, the 5.4-liter Triton V8. The 5.4 Triton was supposed to be the dependable heart of the 11th generation F-Series. It delivered horsepower that was perfectly adequate for construction crews, family hauling, and even towing mid-sized trailers. At first glance, it looked like a bulletproof workhorse. However, it did not take long before owners discovered the dark side. Spark plugs either seized into the aluminum cylinder heads, or just as badly, blew out entirely while driving. Imagine cruising on the highway when suddenly a plug ejects with the force of a bullet, leaving the driver with a loud bang and immediate loss of power. On the other side, when technicians attempted a routine tune-up, the plug sometimes snapped in half because of carbon buildup, requiring costly head repairs. What should have been a few $100 of preventative maintenance could suddenly balloon into a multi-thousand-dollar bill. The problems did not end there, as the Triton V8 relied on a long timing chain and complex cam phasers that stretched prematurely, causing rough running, poor acceleration, and sometimes catastrophic engine damage if timing jumped. Replacing the full set with guides and phasers often cost $4,000 to $6,000, while worn cam phasers created a constant idle rattle that made the engine sound like a tractor. Adding to the misery, each cylinder's coil-on plug design multiplied the chances of misfires, and combined with oil leaks and cooling issues left many trucks spending more time in repair shops than on the road. What made the situation sting most was Ford's persistence. Despite years of complaints, lawsuits, and mechanic warnings, the 5.4 Triton remained in production deep into the 2000s. Loyal buyers who had trusted the F-Series brand felt betrayed, realizing that their investment in what was marketed as America's toughest truck had instead saddled them with one of the most troublesome engines of its era. Many drivers eventually parked these trucks rather than spend another dollar on repairs that exceeded the truck's actual market value. By October of 2025, trucks equipped with the 5.4-liter Triton V8 are often avoided like the plague in the used market. Dealers discount them heavily, and experienced shoppers know to demand proof of major repairs before even considering one. The bitter truth is that what once stood as the symbol of American truck dominance became, for a number of years, one of the most painful ownership experiences imaginable. And if the nation's bestseller could stumble so badly, wait until you see the bow tie rival that promised clever fuel savings but delivered only heartache and repair invoices large enough to empty a savings account. Chevrolet Silverado 1500. Every once in a while, an automaker introduces a piece of technology that sounds brilliant in the showroom but becomes a nightmare once real-world ownership sets in. That is exactly what happened with the Chevrolet Silverado 1500, built from the model years 2007 through 2014. General Motors promoted something called active fuel management, which was a system designed to shut down half of the engine's cylinders during light driving to save fuel. On paper, it seemed like genius. The truck could run on 4 cylinders while cruising on the highway, and then seamlessly switch back to all 8 cylinders when power was needed. For buyers facing rising gasoline prices during the late 2000s, it appeared to be the perfect answer, combining full truck power with sedan-like efficiency. Unfortunately, the dream unraveled almost as soon as owners began began piling miles onto these trucks. The active fuel management system relied on hydraulic lifters that could deactivate and reactivate valves. In practice, these lifters were fragile. They often collapsed prematurely, grinding into the camshaft lobes and producing the dreaded metallic ticking sound that mechanics quickly learned to associate with catastrophic failure. Once that sound appeared, microscopic bits of metal circulated through the oiling system, scarring bearings and other internal parts. The damage snowballed rapidly, and repair bills escalated into the thousands. A repair that might start at $3,000 could easily climb past $7,000, and in severe cases, complete engine replacement was required at a cost that exceeded $15,000. As if that was not bad enough, the active fuel management system created chronic oil consumption, with deactivated cylinders allowing oil past piston rings, often burning a quart every 1,000 miles and causing seized motors or failures during emissions tests. General Motors tried updated deflectors and software, but issues usually returned after warranties ended. Many owners faced huge repair bills, while some shops disabled the system entirely, risking emissions compliance problems. The emotional blow to Silverado buyers was enormous. This was supposed to be the dependable workhorse that families could hand down to their children. Instead, entire model years of Silverado trucks became tarnished by fear of ticking lifters and skyrocketing oil usage. Online forums filled with desperate stories of owners trying to decide between sinking thousands into repairs or abandoning trucks they still owed loans on. Lawsuits surfaced, class actions were filed, and the truck that had been a symbol of hardworking America was suddenly one of the most distrusted used vehicles on the market. By October of 2025, even low-mileage Silverado trucks from this generation carry a stigma. Dealers discount them heavily to move inventory, and savvy buyers approach with suspicion rather than enthusiasm. The lesson is harsh, but clear. Untested technology meant to save pennies at the pump ended up costing thousands in the repair bay. Now, if paying more for an upscale badge seems like it might protect you from such heartache, the next entry proves that a fancy nameplate can still hide the exact same troubles, only dressed up with a higher price tag. If this list has already surprised you, take a second to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Which pickup shocked you most so far? Let's compare stories. Dodge Ram 1500. Some used trucks catch the eye because of their aggressive styling and low resale prices, but what looks like a bargain can quickly drain a bank account. The Dodge Ram 1500 from the early 2000s is a perfect example. Produced from the model years 2001 through 2008, this generation of Ram pickups was bold, muscular, and a common sight on American roads. Buyers loved the imposing stance, the big chrome grills, and the marketing message that shouted toughness. Yet under all that style and swagger, many of these trucks carried engines and transmissions that developed serious and expensive flaws. The most infamous problem came with the 4.7-liter V8 engine. On paper, it was supposed to deliver a good balance of power and efficiency, slotting between the smaller 6-cylinder and the larger Magnum and Hemi 8-cylinders. In practice, the 4.7 quickly earned a reputation for being one of the least forgiving engines in the Dodge lineup. Sludge buildup inside the engine was a recurring issue, often caused by narrow oil passages and high heat. Even owners who followed basic oil change intervals sometimes discovered heavy deposits clogging critical areas. Once sludge set in, overheating and catastrophic engine failure often followed. Timing chain failures also struck, creating knocking noises and sudden loss of performance. When the chain jumped teeth, the result could be bent valves or even a ruined engine block. Repairing or replacing a damaged 4.7-liter engine was rarely cheap, with rebuilds costing $4,000 to $6,000 and full replacements climbing toward $10,000. Buyers drawn by low prices were crushed as values collapsed, and transmission issues only deepened the pain. Early 4.5 RFE and 5.45 RFE automatics slit, shuttered, or failed outright, requiring $3,000 to $5,000 rebuilds, leaving hardworking owners with lost income and costly downtime. Adding insult to injury, these trucks also suffered from other weaknesses that compounded the ownership headache. Electrical glitches, such as failing instrument clusters and power window modules, cropped up. Front-end suspension components wore quickly, leading to clunks and wandering steering. Rust appeared on frames and bedsides earlier than expected, especially in northern states where road salt is common. Each of these problems might not have been catastrophic on its own, but together they painted a picture of a truck that simply could not deliver the long-term reliability buyers expected. By October of 2025, many used car shoppers have learned to approach early 2000s Dodge Ram 1500s with extreme caution. Listings often show tempting prices, but savvy buyers know to ask for proof of major engine work, transmission rebuild receipts, and detailed maintenance records. Without that evidence, the risk of ending up with a driveway ornament instead of a dependable truck is simply too high. And while Dodge's mid-decade missteps hurt plenty of owners, the promise of a downsized mid-size pickup from another another American brand turned out to be just as disappointing, especially once shifting troubles and unexpected electronics failures began to appear. Ram 1500 EcoDiesel, when fuel prices began climbing and drivers wanted more miles per gallon without giving up the strength of a full-size truck, Ram saw a golden opportunity. They introduced the Ram 1500 EcoDiesel, powered by a 3.0-liter turbocharged six-cylinder engine, available from the model years 2014 through 2019. On launch, it seemed revolutionary. Advertisements boasted of highway ranges stretching past 700 miles on a single tank, torque numbers to rival larger gasoline 8-cylinder engines, and efficiency that could make a contractor or family feel like they were beating the system. The promise was alluring: big truck capability blended with car-like fuel economy. But as the years rolled forward, the story turned from hopeful innovation to bitter frustration. The design of this Italian-sourced engine simply did not hold up well under American conditions, especially in stop-and-go traffic and heavy towing. One of the most serious issues came from the timing chain and internal bearings. Owners reported premature wear that led to catastrophic bottom-end failures. A damaged bearing could spin in its journal and starve the engine of oil pressure, often destroying the block entirely. Repairing such a failure meant spending far more than anyone expected when they signed the dotted line. Complete engine replacements frequently topped $15,000. The emission system caused major grief, with diesel particulate filters clogging, exhaust gas recirculation valves failing, and diesel exhaust fluid injectors malfunctioning, often forcing trucks into limp mode and leaving expensive pickups crawling on highways. Repairs ranged from $8,000 to $12,000, erasing fuel savings. Making matters worse, investigations exposed questionable software practices, sparking recalls, lawsuits, and settlements that shattered trust, leaving once proud EcoDiesel owners stuck in financial and legal nightmares while resale values plummeted. The day-to-day ownership experience was far from stress-free. Many drivers became obsessive about monitoring oil pressure at idle, watching exhaust temperatures, and hoping their trucks would complete a regeneration cycle instead of cutting out. Long road trips turned into tense journeys, filled with worry. Some dealerships grew tired of seeing the same customers return over and over with identical failures, and a few even refused to accept EcoDiesel trucks as trade-ins. The resale market collapsed. Trucks that once commanded a premium now sat on lots at rock-bottom prices, and even then, buyers hesitated. By October of 2025, the Ram 1500 EcoDiesel has cemented its place in history, not as the future of efficient full-size trucks, but as one of the most notorious money pits ever sold in the segment. Shoppers eyeing one of these models today are warned to demand full records of engine rebuilds, emissions replacements, and software updates, and even then, many walk away. If the gamble on a diesel-powered half-ton truck could collapse so painfully, imagine the chaos that followed when a supposedly manageable mid-size pickup promised balance, but delivered nothing but shudders, stumbles, and electrical headaches. General Motors Company Canyon. Not every disappointment in the truck world comes from an unreliable engine. Sometimes it is the transmission that tells the whole sad story. The General Motors Company Canyon, produced from the model years 2017 through 2020, appeared to be the perfect mid-size option for buyers who wanted capability without the sheer bulk of a full-size rig. With sleek styling, comfortable interiors, and the prestige of the General Motors Company badge, the Canyon promised to be the Goldilocks truck. Not too big, not too small, but just right. Yet hidden inside many of these models was an 8-speed automatic transmission that brought owners nothing but headaches and hefty bills. At first, the 8-speed automatic seemed like a technological step forward. It was meant to provide smoother acceleration, better fuel economy, and effortless cruising at highway speeds. In reality, drivers discovered gearboxes that hesitated, jerked, and shuddered during everyday driving. Owners frequently described the sensation as if the entire drivetrain was hiccuping beneath their feet, an unnerving experience for anyone merging into traffic or towing a light trailer. The problem traced back to torque converter shudder and poor fluid dynamics inside the transmission. The result was a vehicle that never felt as composed as its marketing promised. Dealerships attempted remedies such as fluid flushes with special low-viscosity fluid and updated control software, but fixes often failed after only a few thousand miles, leaving owners with $4,000 to $6,000 rebuild or replacement bills. Beyond the gearbox, electrical issues piled on. Infotainment screens froze, backup cameras blinked out, warning lights triggered randomly, and power steering modules failed. Instead of dependable mid-size practicality, many drivers were left with uncertainty, frustration, and staggering repair expenses that crushed confidence. Performance also disappointed. The base 4-cylinder engine felt underpowered for a truck of this size, especially when paired with the laggy transmission. Highway merges became a chore, and towing near the rated limits left drivers wishing they had chosen a more robust platform. Even the optional 6-cylinder engine provided only modest relief, as transmission behavior frequently undermined any performance advantage. Fuel economy, while advertised as efficient, often fell short of government estimates, particularly once transmission problems began to appear. Resale value suffered quickly. Buyers paid extra for the General Motors Company name, expecting refinement compared to Chevrolet's sibling, the Colorado. Instead, they ended up with the same shortcomings, only dressed in a fancier badge and at a higher purchase price. Word of mouth spread fast in truck forums and online communities. By the time October of 2025 arrived, used market shoppers had grown wary. Sellers often slashed prices, yet even steep discounts could not mask the Canyon's reputation. What began as a promising mid-size contender became a cautionary tale in just a few short years. For those seeking a reliable daily driver, the Canyon of this generation is often seen as a gamble. Its 8-speed automatic transmission, paired with recurring electrical issues and mediocre performance, transformed it from a practical choice into a problematic one. And if a mid-sized truck could stumble so badly, imagine the disappointment when a diesel-powered compact from the same brand promised efficiency and strength, but instead delivered limp modes, clogged emission systems, and sky-high repair bills. We're down to the final trucks, but before the countdown wraps, make sure you subscribe right now. That way you'll never miss the next deep dive into the pickups everyone else learns about too late. Protect yourself. Subscribe today. Chevrolet Colorado. In the middle of the 2010s, many buyers who wanted a truck but did not need the bulk of a full-size model began eyeing the reborn mid-size segment. One of the brightest stars of this comeback was the Chevrolet Colorado. It promised just enough towing capability for boats, campers, and small trailers, while still being able to slip into tight city parking spaces. For those searching for something efficient yet capable, General Motors offered what seemed like a dream option: the 2.8-liter Duramax turbocharged diesel engine. On paper, it looked perfect. It boasted torque numbers that rivaled larger 8-cylinder trucks, advertised sedan-like fuel economy, and carried the cachet of the Duramax name, long associated with heavy-duty hauling power. When the first Colorado diesels hit the streets in the model year 2016, reviewers praised the smooth torque delivery and the impressive highway mileage. Some owners reported 700 miles of cruising range on a single tank of diesel fuel, which felt revolutionary at the time. But as the miles added up, reality proved far harsher than the glossy brochures suggested. The emission system became the bane of ownership. Diesel particulate filters clogged at alarming rates, especially for drivers whose routines involved short commutes rather than long highway trips. The exhaust gas recirculation valves became prone to sticking or clogging with carbon deposits, and the diesel exhaust fluid injectors often malfunctioned. Any one of these failures could send the truck into limp mode, a safety strategy that drastically cuts power and limits speed. Suddenly, a pickup that was supposed to tow confidently could barely crawl along the highway shoulder. Repair costs were staggering, with emissions overhauls running $8,000 to over $10,000 on trucks worth barely low $20,000s, while turbocharger failures before 100,000 miles added $4,000 to $6,000 or more if debris spread. To make matters worse, fragile nitrogen oxide and diesel exhaust fluid sensors, each costing over $2,000, failed repeatedly, and long dealership part delays left trucks stranded for weeks, turning ownership into a cycle of frustration. The day-to-day driving impression also disappointed many. Turbo lag in stop-and-go city traffic made the Colorado feel unresponsive. The clattering diesel note and constant vibration turned long commutes into tiring slogs, and the real-world fuel economy, once emissions equipment began to clog, often slipped well below the government estimates. Owners who expected to save money at the pump quickly realized that whatever savings appeared on paper were consumed by endless trips to the repair shop. By October of 2025, the reputation of the 2.8-liter Duramax Colorado had plummeted. Dealers struggled to move them even at steep discounts, and forums filled with warnings to prospective buyers. What was marketed as forward-thinking innovation instead became one of the riskiest mid-size truck purchases in recent history. The Colorado serves as a sharp reminder that not every clever-sounding technology ages gracefully, and that sometimes the smaller truck can bring the biggest bills. And if you think mid-size mistakes are painful, the final entry takes us back to a full-size legend that should have been indestructible, but instead became the ultimate resale disaster in American truck culture. F-150. Every truck enthusiast knows that the heavy-duty market is built on trust. Buyers expect a Ford Super Duty F-150 to tow massive loads, survive endless job sites, and serve as a dependable companion for decades. In the early 2000s, Ford introduced the 6.0-liter power-stroke diesel engine into the F-150 lineup, hoping to usher in a new generation of power and efficiency. On paper, it seemed unbeatable, with stronger horsepower than the legendary 7.3-liter diesel it replaced, and promises of cleaner emissions that aligned with tightening government standards. At the dealership lot, this truck looked like the future of working-class America. Unfortunately, what buyers discovered once they put these trucks to the test was a relentless list of mechanical nightmares. One of the earliest and most common failures involved the exhaust gas recirculation coolers. They clogged with soot, cracked under pressure, and leaked coolant into the combustion system. Owners reported clouds of white smoke, overheating, and even complete engine shutdowns. Closely tied to this was the engine oil cooler, which clogged from debris in the coolant and starved the exhaust gas recirculation cooler of proper flow. This failure cycle was devastating and expensive. A single repair could easily reach $4,000 to $6,000, and in many cases the failure repeated within only a few years. The head gasket design was equally problematic, with weak factory bolts stretching under heavy towing, causing lifted heads, blown gaskets, and bubbling coolant tanks. Repairs often demanding $8,000 to $10,000 with machining and aftermarket studs. Fuel system issues worsened matters as leaking seals and stiction plagued the high-pressure oil system, making trucks hard to start or stall, while injector sets cost $3,000 to $5,000, and frequent fuel injection control module failures left many drivers completely stranded. The ownership experience for the average F-150 driver became one of constant anxiety. Contractors and farmers who counted on the truck for daily income faced crippling downtime. Families who purchased the truck for towing campers or horse trailers often found themselves broken down miles from home. Many owners turned to a process called bulletproofing, which meant replacing nearly every vulnerable component with aftermarket upgrades. Stronger head studs, updated oil coolers, improved exhaust gas recirculation systems, and redesigned injectors. While this process could stabilize the engine, it often cost $10,000 to $12,000 or more, which for many exceeded the truck's value. By October of 2025, the reputation of the 6.0-liter Power Stroke in the Ford Super Duty F-250 is cemented as one of the most infamous in diesel history. While some enthusiasts defend the truck once properly modified, the vast majority of used market shoppers are advised to avoid it unless extensive documentation proves that all bulletproofing work has been completed. Even then, resale values remain depressed, and dealers often discount these trucks heavily to get them off the lot. The tragedy of the Ford F-250 from 2003 through 2007 is that it should have carried forward the legacy of indestructible workhorses. Instead, it left behind a trail of lawsuits, broken promises, and financial pain. For anyone scanning the used market today, this particular Super Duty serves as a permanent warning. Not all tough-looking trucks are built to last. And there you have it, the trucks draining wallets in 2025. The only question now is, will you dodge the trap or drive straight into it? Protect your money, protect your time, and stay sharp. Thanks for watching. Until next time, drive smarter, not harder.